Hi, my friends. Today I want to present you a new story. Enjoy watching it.
The conference hall hummed with anticipation, the air thick with the scent of polished wood and expensive cologne. Rows of well-dressed investors and tech executives murmured in hushed excitement, their eyes fixated on the grand stage where a large digital screen displayed the name of the hour, Tech Nano, pioneering the future of nanotechnology. Lindsay Chapman sat near the back, her fingers gripping the armrests of her chair so tightly that her knuckles turned white. She had debated whether she should come at all. Watching Grace Edwards, her former best friend and now CEO of Tech Nano, stand before a sea of flashing cameras, basking in glory, was nothing short of excruciating. 3 years ago, Lindsay had walked into Grace's office with the blueprint for the technology that was now being celebrated as the next revolution in cybersecurity. 3 years ago, Grace had dismissed it as impractical, unfeasible, only to turn around and present it as her own. A round of applause erupted as Grace took center stage, exuding confidence in her tailored navy blue suit. Her smile was effortless, the kind she always wore when she was manipulating people into doing her bidding. Lindsay's stomach churned. "Ladies and gentlemen," Grace began, her voice steady and commanding, "Tech Nano's groundbreaking nanotechnology security protocol is set to redefine how we approach digital protection. This technology will not only anticipate and prevent cyber threats before they happen, but will create a self-adaptive security network that evolves in real time." Lindsay's hands curled into fists. "My words," she thought bitterly. "My concept, my technology." Lindsay felt bile rise in her throat. The words cut deep, not just because of the theft, but because of who was delivering them. She and Grace had grown up on the same street, inseparable since childhood. They had sat at the same desk in school, studied together, and even dreamed of starting their own tech company one day. Lindsay had trusted Grace with everything, her ideas, her ambitions, her loyalty. Lindsay's mind raced back to the late nights in college, when she and Grace worked side by side on coding projects, competing over who could solve problems faster. She had once considered Grace her sister in all but blood. Now, she barely recognized the woman on stage, basking in stolen glory. She glanced sideways at Daniel Hayes, a longtime colleague who had been the only one to believe her when she first voiced her suspicions about Grace. Daniel leaned in, whispering, "Are you ready?" Lindsay nodded, taking a deep breath. The moment of reckoning had arrived. As Grace clicked through her presentation slides, showcasing the brilliance of Tech Nano's innovations, Lindsay pulled out her tablet. The file she had prepared sat waiting, a collection of timestamps, patent filings, and internal emails proving beyond a doubt that she was the true creator of the core technology. "The backbone of our technology is its proprietary code, a formula years in the making," Grace continued. "An intellectual achievement I am incredibly proud of." Lindsay couldn't take it anymore. She stood up. "That's a lie." A hush fell over the audience as hundreds of heads turned to her. Grace froze, her confident facade faltering for just a moment before she plastered on an artificial smile. "Lindsay," she said smoothly, though Lindsay could hear the edge in her voice. "It's been a while. What brings you here?" Lindsay strode forward, tablet in hand. "Oh, just witnessing history in the making, the history of my stolen work being paraded as your own." Murmurs spread across the audience. A few investors exchanged glances, some already checking their devices for any sign of an unfolding scandal. Grace's expression hardened. "I'm afraid I don't know what you're talking about." Lindsay tapped her tablet, sending files to the massive screen. Emails, patent filings, and confidential notes filled the display. Gasps echoed through the hall. "3 years ago, you dismissed my project, claiming it lacked potential," Lindsay said, her voice unwavering. "Yet somehow it became the foundation of Tech Nano's success. How do you explain that?" Grace's face paled. The investment banker, standing nearby, turned to her, his expression dark. "Miss Edwards, what is this?" Grace opened her mouth, then closed it. Lindsay stepped closer, lowering her voice just enough for Grace to hear. "You didn't think I'd let you get away with it forever, did you?" she whispered. "You stole my work. Now I'm taking it back." Before Grace could respond, the doors at the back of the hall swung open. A man in a suit strode in, whispering urgently to the banker. The banker's expression hardened, and he turned back to the audience. Ladies and gentlemen, due to new information received by the SEC, Tech Nano's IPO is temporarily halted pending investigation. The room erupted. Investors shouted, cameras flashed, and Grace stood motionless, her carefully curated empire beginning to crumble. Lindsay watched her, the weight of long-buried injustice finally lifting. This was only the beginning. The air inside the boardroom was thick with tension. Grace sat rigidly at the head of the table, her fingers clutching the polished wood as if it might keep her grounded. Across from her, Lindsay leaned back, her expression calm but razor-sharp. The room was filled with Tech Nano's top investors, executives, and legal counsel, all waiting for the next blow to land. Lindsay tapped her tablet, and the massive presentation screen lit up. "Let's begin, shall we?" she said, her voice carrying an edge of satisfaction. "These are the original schematics of the nanocore system, designed, coded, and patented by me, and this," she swiped the screen, "is Tech Nano's version, identical down to the last algorithm." A murmur ran through the room. One of the investors cleared his throat. "Miss Chapman, are you implying that Ms. Edwards directly copied your work?" "I'm not implying," Lindsay replied smoothly. "I'm stating a fact." Grace scoffed, forcing a smirk. "This is a ridiculous attempt at sabotage. No one will believe you." Lindsay tilted her head, her expression unreadable. "Oh, I think they will." She turned to the investors. "I've also spent the last 2 years acquiring controlling interest in Tech Nano through my own firm, Chapman Ventures." Grace's face drained of color. "That's impossible," she whispered, gripping the armrests of her chair. "Is it?" Lindsay pulled up another document. "Here's the proof. As of this morning, Chapman Ventures holds a majority stake." The legal counsel exchanged glances, and the lead investor cleared his throat again. "Ms. Edwards, is this true?" Grace's mouth opened, but no words came out. Lindsay stood up and smoothed out her blazer. "I own this company now, and the IPO. It's over." The silence that followed was deafening. The final blow had landed. The boardroom was silent, the air thick with tension as Lindsay took her seat at the head of the long, polished table. Across from her, Grace sat rigid, flanked by 2 of her lawyers, their faces drawn and tight. The walls, lined with portraits of past Tech Nano executives, seemed to watch in judgment. Lindsay slid a thick folder across the table. "This is non-negotiable," she said, her voice even but firm. "You will resign immediately, publicly acknowledge your theft, and transfer your remaining shares to the Chapman Innovation Fund. In return, I will not pursue criminal charges." Grace's hands clenched into fists. "This is extortion," she hissed. "You can't." "I can and I will," Lindsay interrupted. "The evidence is overwhelming. The SEC investigation will take months, and by the end of it, your name will be synonymous with fraud." She leaned forward, locking eyes with her former friend. "You built your empire on my work, Grace. It's time to face the consequences." One of the lawyers cleared his throat. "Ms. Edwards, given the circumstances, I strongly advise you to consider the terms. The longer this drags on, the worse it will be for you." Grace's lips pressed into a thin line. "Fine," she spat, yanking the pen from the lawyer's hand and signing the documents with sharp, angry strokes. "But don't think for a second that this makes you better than me." Lindsay stood, gathering the papers. "I don't have to think it, Grace. I know it." As she exited the room, a sense of finality settled over her. Justice had been served. The company was hers now, built on truth, not theft. And for the first time in years, she felt truly free. The name Tech Nano was gone. In its place, Chapman Security Solutions rose like a phoenix from the wreckage of Grace's deceit. The company had been stripped of every falsehood and rebuilt on the foundation of truth and integrity. Lindsay stood in the boardroom, her eyes scanning the faces of her new leadership team, engineers, developers, and visionaries who had once been overshadowed by Grace's arrogance. "Today you move forward," Lindsay announced, her voice firm yet filled with conviction. "No more stolen ideas, no more false promises. We innovate, we create, and we lead." A round of nods and murmurs of agreement rippled through the room. Daniel, her trusted lead engineer, stepped forward. "The new prototype is ready, Lindsay. Fully optimized, better than anything Tech Nano ever had." Lindsay smiled. Then let's show the world what real innovation looks like. A year later, Chapman Security Solutions went public at nearly 3 times Technano's original valuation. The headlines didn't just celebrate the IPO, they hailed Lindsay as a symbol of perseverance and justice. As for Grace, she had vanished from the industry, her reputation beyond repair. No venture capitalist would touch her. Lindsay had ensured that much. One evening, a package arrived at her office, a small box with no return address. Inside was a framed photograph from their childhood. Lindsay and Grace at their first science fair, beaming with pride over a project they had built together. A note was tucked behind the frame. "I should have been better. I lost everything. You deserved it all along." Lindsay held the photo for a moment, then placed it in a drawer. The past was the past. She had a future to build, one where no one would ever take away what she had rightfully earned. She powered on her computer and got back to work.
Friends, what do you think of this story? Write your opinion in the comments. Would you like more stories? Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell button so you don't miss any videos. See you tomorrow.